The boat was rocking gently as I stood behind the cabin door, balancing a tray of drinks. The houseboat trip had started out like any other family gathering, joyful, carefree, everyone laughing, enjoying the weekend away. But then I overheard something I never thought I'd hear. I had just stepped outside to fetch a fresh round of cocktails when I heard my wife's voice. She was sitting with a few of her friends on the back deck, the laughter light, almost too bright, like a sound meant to cover something darker. "Honestly, he's just so predictable," she said, her voice warm, but too casual. "His romantic style? It's like a tax audit. You know? There's no spontaneity. It's always the same, routine. Nothing exciting about it." The comment was met with light laughter from her friends. One of them, her business partner, chimed in. "God, that's brutal. But so true. He's a great guy, but you're not wrong." I stood frozen, a glass of lemonade in one hand. The other braced against the doorframe as I tried to keep myself from reacting. My chest tightened with every word they spoke, each one slicing into me like a knife I couldn't pull out. My own wife, my partner of over a decade, mocking me, mocking us. Our most intimate moments, our vulnerabilities, were now public fodder, made to be laughed at by her friends. "Yeah," she continued, not even noticing the hurt she was spilling into the air. "It's like he's trying to check a box. I don't think he even knows what's missing. But I guess that's just him. So predictable." I felt the blood rush to my ears as her laughter mixed with the others. I stood there, fighting the impulse to storm out and confront her right then. But I stayed still, frozen in that moment, and listened. For the first time, I saw our marriage through a new, painful lens. I was her safe, predictable husband, but I wasn't exciting enough. Not enough to be seen as worthy of respect, only worthy of ridicule. I turned back, the tray of drinks still steady in my hands, and walked back into the party with a calm mask on my face. I made small talk, handed out snacks, and kept my head down, pushing the storm building inside me further down, burying it deep. I wasn't going to let anyone see how deeply those words had cut. Not yet. As I moved through the group, I heard her try to cover her tracks, laughing a little too loudly as she spoke to the group of women. "Oh, don't mind me," she said. "We were just debating relationship dynamics. You know, just harmless fun. Nothing to take seriously." But I heard it. The change in her tone, the way she tried to smooth things over. It wasn't harmless fun. Not to me. I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes, and handed out the next drink. The hurt was still raw, but I buried it under a mask of composure. For now, I said nothing. I would let this moment pass. But something in me had shifted. That night, while the party raged on, I retreated to a quiet corner of the boat, pretending I was fine. But I wasn't, and I knew that this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the gentle hum of the houseboat, the sounds of birds chirping in the distance. The party had finally quieted down, everyone retreating to their rooms or the deck to catch some fresh air. But I couldn't shake the weight of what I'd overheard the night before. I tried to act like everything was fine, like I hadn't heard my wife mock our intimacy in front of her friends, but it lingered in my mind like a slow poison, seeping into every thought I had. I grabbed a cup of coffee, hoping to shake off the uncomfortable tension that hung in the air. My wife was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She didn't seem to notice me at first, absorbed in whatever conversation was happening on the screen in front of her. And then, a soft laugh escaped her lips. "Ugh, Jessica's killing me," she said, showing me the phone. She said, "I don't know how you put up with him. You're a saint." She laughed again, oblivious to my clenched jaw. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to react. I just watched her, feeling the distance between us grow. She went on about the conversations from the night before, how everyone had laughed, how much fun they'd had, but it all felt so hollow to me. Not once did she acknowledge how what she'd said had affected me. The more I observed her, the more I realized how little awareness she had of the damage she'd caused. She was completely at ease, carefree, as though nothing had changed. As the days passed, I kept an eye on her. I noticed the subtle shift in her behavior, the way she disengaged when I spoke, how her eyes would light up whenever one of her friends called. She would lie, claiming it was her mother or a coworker, but I knew better. She wasn't talking to anyone important. She was talking to them, her friends, her business partner. The calls would last longer than necessary, filled with laughter and inside jokes, things I had never been part of. Every time she got off the phone, she'd smile at me and say, "Hey, everything's fine. Don't worry about it." But there was always an edge to her words, an avoidance, like she couldn't quite make eye contact anymore. It was as if she were deliberately distancing herself. And I, the one who had been there for her every step of the way, was now reduced to an afterthought. I tried talking to her a couple of times, asking her if everything was okay between us, but she brushed me off every time. "You're overthinking things," she'd say. "We're fine. You're just in your head." It made me question everything. Was I overthinking, or was I finally seeing her for who she really was? She would laugh, talk about her friends, about work, but whenever I tried to bring up anything personal, anything about us, it was met with a swift change in topic. She had no interest in addressing what was wrong. It was easier to talk about anything other than us. Her energy had shifted. The woman I once trusted with everything now seemed more invested in her friend's approval than in my feelings. The more I watched, the more I realized. She wasn't just distant. She was actively pulling away, and I was becoming invisible to her. And yet, she never stopped talking about them. Never stopped sharing their inside jokes, their latest gossip, their little dramas. I was just a silent observer now. In a marriage I wasn't sure was mine anymore. She had no idea how much I was hurting, how deeply her words had cut me. Or maybe she did, and simply didn't care. But I stayed quiet, watching, waiting. I was beginning to understand that she wasn't just failing to see me. She was choosing not to. I came home early that day, the hum of the air conditioning inside the house a welcome change from the heat of the afternoon. I'd been running errands, picking up groceries, when I decided to surprise her. I walked into the bedroom to find her sitting on the bed, her phone pressed against her ear. I hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to interrupt. But something in her tone made me pause. "He's been so cold lately," she said softly. I didn't know why, but that comment sent a chill through me. I stayed at the door, listening, hidden in the shadows, waiting for more. "I don't know what's going on with him," she continued, her voice laced with frustration. "It's like he's testing me. He's pulling away for no reason. I haven't done anything wrong." A lump formed in my throat. Her voice was calm, like she wasn't even considering the fact that she might be the one at fault. And then it hit me, the subtle lie. She wasn't talking to her dad like she claimed. I could tell by the tone, by the way she shifted in her seat, that it wasn't him on the other end of the line. I stood there for a moment, frozen in place, my heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't imagined it. She really was spinning this, painting me as the problem when it was her actions that had cut us apart. I felt a wave of disgust rise in me as I realized how easily she had convinced herself that I was the one testing her. The phone call ended a few minutes later, and she hung up with a soft sigh. I waited until I heard her shuffle across the room before I stepped out of the hallway and into the kitchen, trying to keep my composure. That night, she came to me, as if nothing had happened. Her body pressed up against mine in bed, a quiet plea for intimacy, but it felt off. There was no passion, no warmth. It was all for show, all calculated. She wasn't trying to reconnect. She was trying to fix the cracks in our marriage, patch things up with a performance, as if everything could be solved by the physical act. When she pulled away, she looked at me expectantly. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice light but tinged with concern. "You've been so distant." I didn't have the energy to explain. The words felt hollow in my throat. "I'm just thinking about life priorities," I said, trying to sound casual. Her eyes searched mine for a moment, as if looking for something she couldn't find. "Don't strain yourself," she replied flippantly. The words cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just a dismissive comment. It was another jab, another way she belittled me, like she had done in front of her friends. It was all starting to make sense now. She was playing a game of manipulation. The signs had been there for months, but I'd refused to see them. She'd convinced herself I was the one who had changed, the one who was cold and distant. But she was the one who had pulled away, who had started distancing herself from me in favor of her friends and the comfort of her own image. And now, she was trying to fix it. But I wasn't sure I could pretend anymore. I wasn't sure I could go back to that mask I wore, composed, calm, the ever-patient husband, when all I felt was rage building inside of me. I lay there in the dark, my mind spinning. I knew things weren't right. But now, I was certain that the person I had trusted the most had become someone unrecognizable. I was washing my truck, the hot sun beating down on me, when I saw her walking across the driveway. Her steps were slow, measured, like she was calculating every move she made. I didn't recognize her at first. It was my wife's business partner, the same one who had laughed so easily at my expense during the houseboat trip. Her name was Rachel, and I couldn't help but wonder why she was heading toward me now. I wiped the sweat from my brow, waiting for her to speak. She came closer, looking around like she was trying to decide if anyone could see us. Finally, she stopped a few feet away, her expression serious. "Can I talk to you for a second?" she asked, almost as if she were nervous. I nodded. "Sure. What's up?" She hesitated, glancing back toward the house. "It's about your wife." My stomach tightened. "What about her?" Rachel shifted on her feet, pulling at the sleeves of her blazer. She seemed almost uncomfortable, but there was something urgent in her eyes. "I don't know how to say this, but I can't keep quiet anymore. I've heard her say things about you, things that really bothered me." I folded my arms, trying to remain composed, even though the thought of my wife talking behind my back made my blood run cold. "What kind of things?" She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself for what she was about to say. "She mocks you. Not just about your romantic life, but your lifestyle, your choices, everything. The way you even vacuum, for God's sake." I didn't know what to say at first. My mind raced, processing her words. I had known something was wrong, but hearing it confirmed by someone else, someone who worked with her, it stung. It stung more than I expected. Rachel kept talking, her voice low but sincere. "I know she thinks she's being funny, but it's not funny. Most of us, well, we're uncomfortable with it. We all talk about it in private. A lot of us actually admire you more than you know. You've always been steady, solid, while she, well, I don't know, but she's changed. She's different after that promotion. It's like she thinks she's above everyone else now." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. The realization hit me hard, almost like a punch to the gut. I had always thought Rachel and the others were just part of the crowd, business people who had their own lives, their own worlds. I never expected any of them to care about me or my role in this marriage. But now, hearing Rachel speak like this, I realized just how much I had been taken for granted. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked quietly, though part of me already knew. Rachel shifted her weight again, looking at me with a mix of sympathy and caution. "Because I respect you more than she does. And I just thought you should know. I don't think she sees it, but you deserve better than what she's giving you. Maybe you don't need someone like her in your life. Maybe it's time you stand up for yourself." I blinked, taking it all in. I hadn't expected this, hadn't expected Rachel of all people to be the one to give me the clarity I'd been desperately seeking. But as she spoke, something inside me shifted. A small part of me, one that had been buried under years of self-doubt and compromise, started to believe what she was saying. "I appreciate you telling me," I said after a long pause, my voice steady. "I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'm glad you told me." Rachel gave me a small, almost sad smile. "I just thought you needed to hear it from someone who wasn't part of the group. You've been taking the fall for too long, and you shouldn't have to." She turned and started walking away, but then stopped, looking back at me. "Take care of yourself. Don't let her make you feel less than what you are." I stood there, frozen for a moment, watching her leave. The weight of her words pressed down on me, but I felt lighter somehow. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was the problem. I didn't feel like I was failing. The betrayal from my wife had felt isolating, but hearing Rachel's perspective made me realize that there was still some respect for me out there. Even if my wife couldn't see it, maybe others did. And maybe it was time I started listening to them. It wasn't long before I decided to do something. I had reached my breaking point. Waiting for my wife to come to her senses wasn't working. But maybe, just maybe, putting her on the spot would. I organized a barbecue at our house. Casual, low-key, and most importantly, spontaneous. I invited a few usual couples, including Rachel. Her presence wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. I needed someone who could see through the facade, someone who might even support me in a public setting. My wife was rattled when she found out I hadn't included her in the planning. She hated not being in control. As usual, she tried to make her demands known. "Why didn't you consult me about the guest list?" she asked, with a mix of surprise and irritation. I just shrugged. "We're all grown-ups. It's a casual gathering. Everyone's invited." That was all it took to set her off. She could no longer pull the strings. She tried to control the guest list by texting me suggestions, but I ignored her. For once, I was the one making the decisions, and she didn't like it. The evening unfolded as expected. The sun was setting, and the barbecue started with typical chatter about the weather and the week's events. But as the wine flowed, the conversation naturally shifted toward more personal topics. Marriage, passion, what makes it work or fail. My wife, already a bit tipsy, decided to weigh in. You know, she began, holding her glass in the air for emphasis. People expect too much out of relationships. Like, not everything needs to be fireworks. We all have our routines. Predictability can be comforting. She paused, clearly expecting someone to agree. It was an offhand remark, but I could feel it was about me. It had to be. Predictable. She had called me before, another jab in the same vein as the houseboat conversation. Then, as if she hadn't said enough, she added, I don't know. Sometimes, I think people get stuck thinking their relationships have to be exciting all the time. When, honestly, sometimes it's just about getting through it without making a scene. If you can't do that, what's the point? The room was quiet for a moment, the air thick with the tension I knew she wasn't even aware of. She had gone too far. But before I could say anything, Rachel, who had been sipping her wine quietly, set her glass down. Actually, she said, her voice firm but kind, I think respect is more important than fireworks. At least, that's been my experience. The small things, like showing up, like being present, those matter more than trying to chase that initial spark. Careful effort isn't mechanical. It's meaningful. The silence that followed was thick, every eye in the room turning toward my wife. She looked stunned for a split second, then quickly regained her composure, but the damage was done. Rachel wasn't done. She wasn't going to let my wife twist the narrative. I mean, she added, leaning forward slightly, sometimes the most predictable people are the ones you can rely on. The ones who make an effort, not for the sake of excitement, but because they care. Those are the ones who don't just disappear when things aren't as thrilling as the first date. I could see my wife's face harden. Rachel had exposed her in front of everyone, and it wasn't something she could easily brush off. Is that how you feel about your marriage? My wife finally asked, her voice tight, clearly uncomfortable with the shift in the conversation. Rachel's expression softened slightly, but she didn't back down. I'm just saying, sometimes, the real effort in a marriage isn't about how exciting it is. It's about respect, even when it's not glamorous. I looked at my wife, letting the silence sit for a moment before I spoke up. Rachel's right. It's not all about chasing excitement or pretending things are perfect. It's about how much you're willing to invest in each other, not just in a show for others. My wife was quiet now, staring into her wine glass. The mask she'd been wearing slipped for a second, and I saw something flicker behind her eyes. But it wasn't remorse. It was frustration. She wasn't ready to admit anything, especially not in front of people. The conversation moved on, but the damage was done. My wife had been forced to confront her own disrespect, not only in front of me, but in front of everyone. She couldn't hide behind her usual excuses anymore. She had exposed herself. As the night wound down, guests began to leave, the laughter slowly dying down, but I remained rooted in the same place. I'd made my move, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't invisible. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I was done pretending. The house was quiet after the guests left. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses still echoed in my ears, but it was fading fast. I was left with a sinking feeling in my stomach, a weight I couldn't shake. I had let her expose herself, but now, the real confrontation was inevitable. It had been a long time coming, and I wasn't going to let her brush it off this time. I was cleaning up in the kitchen when she entered, her footsteps deliberate and measured, the anger simmering under her calm exterior. You really embarrassed me tonight, she said, her voice tight with frustration. What the hell was that? I didn't look at her as I wiped down the counter, though my hands were steady. I was beyond the point of pretending to care about her feelings anymore. I wasn't going to lie to myself about it. I knew exactly why I had done it. I didn't embarrass you, I replied, my voice colder than I meant it to be. You embarrassed yourself. She scoffed, walking closer. Is that how you're going to play this? What? Because I said a couple of things in front of our friends. That's what this is about. I turned to face her, my eyes meeting hers for the first time all evening. It wasn't just a couple of things, I said, my voice low but firm. You've been mocking me for months. In front of our friends, behind my back, and now you want to act like nothing's wrong? Her face faltered for a moment, just a flicker of doubt crossing her features before she composed herself. I didn't mean it like that. We were just talking. It's harmless fun, you know that. I shook my head, stepping closer to her. Harmless fun? Really? Because it didn't feel harmless when you made our most intimate moments into a joke. When you laugh at me in front of people who don't even know the real me, who don't even care to. She opened her mouth to speak, but I wasn't done. The floodgates had opened, and I wasn't going to back down. You've been lying about everything. You lied about who you were talking to on the phone last week. You lied about the way you speak about me to your friends. And you lied to yourself when you thought you could keep using me without ever facing the consequences. Her face twisted in anger. You think I'm the one lying? You've been distant for weeks, acting like you don't even care. You think I don't notice that? I took a deep breath, holding her gaze. I'm not the one who changed, Jessica. You did. You've been pulling away, hiding behind your little group of friends, using them for validation. You didn't even care when I was hurt by what you said. You just kept on with your life like nothing had changed. For a second, there was silence. She looked like she wanted to speak, but the words seemed stuck. Finally, she let out a frustrated sigh and crossed her arms. Fine. I get it. You're upset. But this is all so dramatic. It was just girl talk. I didn't even blink. Girl talk. I repeated. You think this is just girl talk? You mocked me, Jessica. You mocked our marriage, and now you're trying to downplay it. You're trying to make me feel like I'm overreacting. She stepped back, her arms dropping to her sides as her face contorted in disbelief. What do you want from me, huh? What? Do you expect me to beg for your forgiveness? To grovel? Because I'm not doing that. I held my ground. No, I don't need you to grovel. I just need you to admit what you've done. Admit that you've treated me like I'm invisible, like I'm some backup plan you can make fun of when it's convenient. I won't share a bed with someone who disrespects me behind my back. Her eyes widened, her voice rising. You're being ridiculous. You're twisting this into something it's not. You're being so cold and distant, like you don't even care anymore. I didn't shout. I didn't lose control. I just spoke calmly, firmly. I'm done pretending everything is okay. I'm done with this facade you've been putting up, and I won't be part of it anymore. Not until you can respect me. Not until you can see me for who I really am. Not just some joke for you to laugh at when it suits you. She stood there, breathing heavily, her face flushed with a mix of anger and something else I couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe, but she wasn't ready to own up to it yet. I didn't wait for her to say anything else. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her there, frozen in the moment. This was the point of no return. I had been waiting for her to change, to see the damage she had caused. But now, I knew I couldn't keep waiting. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see the truth. She needed to face the reality of what she had done. And if she didn't, then I was done. The days dragged on, cold and silent between us. The house felt more like a hotel than a home. I moved through it mechanically, cooking, cleaning, doing the necessary tasks, but nothing more. I didn't say much, didn't show much, and I certainly didn't care for small talk. The once warm spaces we shared now seemed sterile, devoid of any affection or connection. She would try to engage me, but I shut her out every time, burying myself in silence. At night, I would retreat to the guest room, the distance between us growing wider by the hour. She seemed to feel it, too, but she never knew how to fix it. Instead, she did what she always did, tried to gloss over things with excuses. She apologized, of course. A half-hearted apology, sprinkled with defensiveness. I'm sorry, she would say, her voice soft but lacking conviction. I didn't mean to hurt you. But I could hear the hesitation in her words, the inability to truly face what she had done. I had been waiting for her to show some real remorse, some genuine understanding of how deep her actions had cut. But she never did. Her apology felt more like a reflex than a real effort to change. Then, one morning, she came to me with a list. It was a small piece of paper, folded neatly, as though she had prepared it ahead of time. Her eyes were tired, her shoulders slumped with the weight of whatever she was about to say. I've called everyone, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Everyone I could think of, to apologize for what I've done, including Jessica. I didn't react. I just stared at her, waiting. There was no warmth in me, no sympathy. She had already shown me who she was. I called Jessica, she repeated, as if expecting me to say something, anything. I think she was right. I've been arrogant. And I didn't see how much I was taking you for granted. How much I mocked you. To make myself feel better. It's all because I didn't know how to deal with my own emptiness. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks, but I didn't let them show. Not yet. She needed to understand the weight of her actions, the consequences. I'm listening, I said, my tone flat. What else? She swallowed hard and looked down at the floor. I lost sight of what we had. I made jokes about you. About our life. About everything. I was trying to avoid confronting what was really wrong with me. I stood there, processing, but I wasn't ready to offer her reassurance. Not yet. She needed to feel the coldness, the distance I'd been holding. She needed to understand that words weren't enough anymore. You want me to forgive you? I asked, the words rolling off my tongue like ice. You want me to forget everything and go back to what it was? Because it doesn't work like that. Not anymore. She flinched, but didn't look up. I'm not asking for you to forgive me right away. I know I don't deserve it. I need you to know I'm sorry. I was wrong. I took a deep breath, letting the silence settle. I've listened to you, I said finally. But here's the thing, Jessica. Apologies are empty without change. You've shown me who you are. You've shown me how little you cared for me and for this marriage. Her eyes were welling up now, but I didn't look away. I couldn't. She needed to feel the full weight of this. I'm not going to pretend like everything is fine. Not until you prove that you can change. Not until you show me that respect is something you can practice every day, not just when it's convenient. I understand, she whispered, wiping her eyes. I continued, my voice still steady, cold. And one more thing. Jessica, she's no longer welcome here. I won't allow her to be part of our lives anymore. Not after everything that's happened. Her face twisted in confusion. You want me to cut her out? You don't get to have people in your life who encourage your bad behavior. She enabled you to disrespect me. She's not welcome in our home, and she won't be part of our future. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand, stopping her. This is not negotiable. If you want to rebuild any semblance of trust between us, this is where it starts. No more excuses. No more pretending. She nodded slowly, the weight of my words finally sinking in. I'll do better, she said, her voice breaking. I promise. I know I've lost your trust, but I'll work to earn it back. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her words were just the beginning. Trust, once broken, doesn't come back overnight. It takes work, real work. And I wasn't sure yet if I was willing to give her the chance to prove herself. But, for the first time in a while, I could see a flicker of genuine remorse in her eyes. I'll hold you to that, I said, turning away to focus on something else. She stayed silent for a while, her tears now quiet as she walked away. The days after that were a strange quiet. No apologies, no excuses. Just space. Space for her to reflect, and space for me to decide what the next steps were. I had set the boundaries, but I still didn't know if I could trust her again. She had taken the first step, but the road to forgiveness was long. Weeks passed, but nothing about the house felt the same. There was a coldness between us, a distance I had never imagined possible. She was trying. At least, I had to give her that. Little things changed, though I wasn't sure if they were out of genuine remorse or just out of fear. The texting during dinner stopped. The jokes at my expense, the ones that used to come so easily, were absent. She gave me more of her attention, but I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I remained distant, observant, even though I could see her efforts. She tried harder than I'd ever seen her try before. She took an interest in things I liked, like the music I played on weekends, the books I read, the quiet time I used to cherish. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still waiting for the betrayal to resurface. One night, she sat across from me at the dinner table, her hands folded on top of her plate. She was watching me carefully, waiting for the right moment. I knew it was coming. Do you think we can start over? She asked softly, her voice hesitant, like she was testing the waters. I looked at her, the words already heavy in my chest. Start over? You think we can just pick up where we left off? She nodded, but there was no smile, no light in her eyes. Just hope, fragile and desperate. I know I've messed up. I've been selfish, and I've hurt you. I don't want to keep living like this. I don't want us to keep living like this. I leaned back in my chair, the creak of the wood beneath me punctuating the silence. I wasn't angry anymore, but the ache in my chest was still there, a constant reminder of everything that had been said and done, everything she'd allowed to happen. I can't just pretend everything's fine, Jessica, I said, my voice firm. You can't just show up one day and expect everything to be the way it was. Her eyes softened, but she didn't look away. I know that, but I'm trying. I'm trying to show you that I'm different, that I can be better. I know I can't undo what's been done, but I can make things right. I need you to see that. I need you to see that I'm committed to change. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I stayed silent for a moment, staring at my plate, the weight of her words sinking in. It wasn't just her that needed to change. I did too, but I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive her. Not completely, and I couldn't lie to myself about it. I had to protect myself now, even from the woman I had loved for years. I finally spoke, my voice steady, but the resolve in it unshakable. I don't know if I can move back to our bedroom yet. I don't know if I can trust you again. Not fully. Her face fell, but she didn't argue. She nodded, accepting the truth in my words. I understand. I just want to be with you again, the way we used to be. But I know it's going to take time. I glanced up at her then, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. It hurt to look at it, but it was also the first sign of the woman I had known, the one who had been real with me once before. You're right, I said slowly. It's going to take time, but I need to be sure. I need to be sure that I'm not just going to be hurt again. And that means no more games. No more pretending. If you want this to work, you have to prove it every single day. Respect has to come first. It's not just a thing we talk about in the moment. It has to be there all the time. She nodded, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I promise. I'll prove it. I'll show you every day that I can be the person you need me to be. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel something close to hope. It wasn't love yet, not the kind I had felt before, but it was something. Maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand what was at stake. I'm still not sure when I'll come back to the bedroom, I said, my tone still cautious. But I'll start with this. I'll give you the chance to show me you're serious. She didn't respond right away. She just looked at me, her face a mix of guilt and something else, relief, maybe. I wasn't sure, but it was enough for now. Enough to start rebuilding. The road ahead was uncertain. There were no promises, no guarantees. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel completely alone. Maybe that was the beginning of something new. As I walked toward the guest room later that night, I didn't feel anger or resentment like I had before. But I still kept my distance, still guarding the part of me that was too scared to trust again. And she seemed to understand that. She didn't try to force me. In the days that followed, I kept watching. Watching for the small signs that she was really changing. Watching to see if her actions matched her words. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew it. But I also knew that, for the first time, she was finally taking responsibility for her actions. And maybe that was the hardest part for her, truly understanding the damage she'd done and how far she'd have to go to make things right. Love didn't come easily, not anymore. But perhaps, in time, it could come back. Not in the same way it was before, but in a way that felt real. In a way that felt earned. For now, I would take it one step at a time. But this time, I would protect myself. I wouldn't allow the same mistakes to happen again. And maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. On my terms.